The next day, King Sejong sat upon his throne and declared that the royal court would take over the mining and refining of iron to produce high-quality steel, which would then be sold to craftsmen across the nation. Therefore, he continued, we must map out every iron mine in the country and register all local blacksmiths. Your Majesty, we object, said the chief state counselor and the left state counselor. The royal court has never directly engaged in trade before. Wouldn't that mean the palace is profiting from the people? It's unjust and improper. King Sejong frowned, clearly irritated by his minister's naivete. Do you truly think the palace will charge exploitative prices? Iron is mined in many places and needed in every sector. Prices are low near the mines, but skyrocket in regions without them. Who suffers the most in that case? The ministers lowered their heads and the court fell silent. If the palace handles production, that problem will be solved. We're not doing this for profit, the king said firmly. He pressed his temple, holding back his frustration. If you understand, then let's move on to the details. A few days later, the ministers gathered to discuss the establishment of a royal-owned company. Li Jik and Huang He looked as if they were preparing to face the final boss. Mayang Sajung's face was gloomy, and the air felt as sharp as a freshly forged blade. Hyang sighed inwardly, half amused and half uncomfortable. Ugh, this is really awkward. Finally, Li Jik spoke up. Your Highness, forgive me for saying this, but you already have enough responsibilities. You shouldn't have to involve yourself in matters like this. Hyang replied carefully. Considering the material needs of the Research Institute and Area 51, this is a top priority. You all know the current iron supply system is problematic. He then laid out the issue clearly and concisely. Miners were required to pay tribute in the form of iron, based on the size of their land. In areas without iron mines, they had to buy from merchants, causing prices to soar the farther they were from mining regions. Some miners even sold their household possessions just to meet the tribute quota. That's true. We're aware of the corruption, exclaimed Huang He. That's why the rule only applies to regions that actually produce iron. Hyang closed his eyes briefly and sighed. The problem remains. Miners from regions without mines have to travel long distances, covering living expenses just to work in mining areas. Often their work terms are extended by force so they can meet the targets. He lifted a stack of documents. All the details are in this report. Then, Hyang gestured toward Yung Cho. The establishment of the royal enterprise will be handled by the Department of Administration. Lord Yung Cho, please explain. Yung Cho bowed. Yes, Your Highness. Since the last council meeting, a nationwide investigation has begun. In the mountains, we've discovered many unregistered workshops operating illegally. They run small-scale businesses. Some even employ up to 10 people. These workshops essentially control the forced labor miners, with networks that reach iron traders across several regions. Huang He interjected sharply. So, loyal citizens who follow the law might end up buying from these illegal groups just to fulfill their iron tribute? Exactly, Jung Cho replied. The tribute system actually benefits them. But if the mines are owned by the crown, the price manipulation ends. The kingdom will take over the work these workshops have been doing, said Hyang. Is that even possible? Li Jik asked, doubtful. Do you plan to give them official positions? Added Huang He. Hyang smirked. Of course not. That authority isn't mine to give. For matters this sensitive, His Majesty will discuss it directly with the ministers. He cleared his throat and thought to himself, if I give them official titles, I'll become their next target. These old foxes are too cunning. Yung Cho spoke up again. We don't have to give them positions, but we can give them recognition. Huang He raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? Well, Jung Cho said, we can officially acknowledge their skills. Hyang's eyes sparkled. Let's invite the craftsmen to the capital and hold a national competition. One of them will be crowned the royal blacksmith, and his technique will become the kingdom's new standard. A sly smile curved on his lips. We'll call it Show Me the Iron. The Bureau of Armory and the Ministry of Public Works will serve as judges, and I'll be the head of the committee. The ministers exchanged glances, their faces expressionless, yet full of unspoken thoughts. So that was your plan all along. Hyang and his entourage then left the council chamber. Li Jik stood by the window, watching their backs as they disappeared down the hall. He murmured, Left State Councilor, you once said he reminded you of a cunning little fox. Now I understand exactly what you meant. He hesitated for a moment. But will everything really go smoothly? Don't worry, Huang He replied calmly. I'm sure this has already been discussed with His Majesty. Besides, this works in our favor. We've got enough work as it is. Let him shoulder some of the load. One bright morning at the Joseon Research Institute, Hyang's firm voice echoed through the meeting room. The primary selection criteria will be the purity of the iron, he declared clearly. His sharp gaze swept across the room. We'll start by identifying large-scale iron producers in regions that have consistently provided pure iron as tribute. Jung Cho quickly responded. In that case, I'll request the iron tribute records from the Department of Finance for the past few years. A short while after the meeting, Hyang called for the deputy head of the institute. From the doorway, he asked curtly, Still no word from the Department of Finance? Your Highness, the request was just sent out. It hasn't even been an hour, the deputy replied. Hyang grumbled softly as he closed the door. Before he could take more than a few steps, the door burst open again. With an impatient expression, he asked, The Deputy Minister of Finance? Jung-cho sighed in irritation. Tell them to hurry. No, Hyang said firmly. I'll go myself. The attendants panicked, scrambling to stop him. Please wait, Your Highness. Have patience. But Hyang didn't slow down. It's taking too long. This is for father. The Department of Finance erupted into chaos. The Crown Prince had arrived unannounced, radiating anger. I only asked for data. Why is it taking so long? This project is important for my father. The officials rushed frantically to gather the documents. Once compiled, Hyang snatched them from their hands, his face flushed with restrained fury. You should have done this from the start. Father was right. Sometimes people living off royal salaries only work properly after being yelled at. For a brief moment, he pictured King Sejong's stern face in his mind. A few days later, at a quiet pavilion, King Sejong sipped his tea and looked at his son. You've been busy lately, haven't you? Thanks to your permission, father, Hyang replied respectfully. The king watched his son's reaction as he took a sip of the tea that had been served. Is it bitter? He asked with a faint smile. I brewed this myself, for your health. From now on, drink 1 cup in the morning and another at night. I was planning to wait until you turn 15, but your well-being can't wait. Don't overwork yourself. Hyang's expression turned serious. Yes, father. I'll remember your words. Amid the stillness of the forest, King Sejong's calm voice followed. Finish your tea. The next morning, the same tea awaited on Hyang's desk. He stared at it for a moment. Today's special, he murmured. Father's love in a cup. I have to finish it. With one big gulp, the bitterness spread across his lips. He winced slightly, then straightened his robes and adjusted his hat. His mind began to race. It had been nearly a month since the proposal was made. After thorough investigation by trusted officials, 3 names had surfaced as the finest blacksmiths in all of Joseon. Deok-soo from Gyeongju, Bak-dae from Chungcheon, and Manjok from Hapcheon. That day in the royal court, King Sejong began the session. Crown Prince, it's been over a month. How is your project progressing? Hyang bowed respectfully. Regarding that, Your Majesty, I have selected the blacksmiths who will oversee the iron smelting process. The king raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Selecting blacksmiths? And how will you do that? We'll hold a blacksmith competition in Hanyang, Hyang answered confidently. Huang He stepped forward, his voice bold and clear. Your Majesty, forgive me, but there are countless blacksmiths across the land. Is such a competition even feasible? King Sejong nodded slightly. A fair question. Crown Prince, please explain. With enthusiasm, Hyang began. In truth, there won't be that many participants. First, we've identified regions that have consistently provided forged iron as tribute, not those that did so only for a year or two, but those with steady records over several years. We then sent skilled craftsmen to inspect their work. That way, only the truly capable ones will advance to the competition. He continued, his tone calm yet resolute. In the end, only 3 candidates will be summoned to Hanyang. Seeing his son's brilliance, King Sejong suppressed a small laugh, murmuring inwardly, I knew this child was extraordinary. Then he asked, Excellent, excellent. So, where will this grand competition be held? Hyang turned, a bright smile spreading across his face. Yes, father. We'll hold it in Area 51. King Sejong froze, his face stiffening. Wait, that highly restricted facility? You're hosting a competition in a place even the king can't enter without clearance. Forgive me, father, Hyang said with a small bow. I've been too busy to report earlier, so I made a few adjustments. He described his plan like drawing a diagram in the air. Red zones are top security, yellow zones are standard, and green zones are low level. In the green zones, entry only requires notification 2 days in advance. Once identities and permits are verified, they'll be allowed in. The blacksmith competition will be held there. King Sejong chuckled in admiration. Haha, that sounds brilliant. Very well, carry it out to the best of your ability. Hyang's eyes gleamed. Yes, father. I'll make sure every detail is perfect. At the Research Institute, a startled voice suddenly broke the silence. What did you just say? Hyang turned around, tension flickering in his eyes. The craftsmen refuse to work in the same place, a minister reported. Smelting iron is a trade secret. They don't want their techniques exposed to rivals. This is for the sake of the nation. Just force them, General Choi Hyasan barked. Another official shook his head. They're proud men of the forge, hard-headed and stubborn. Some would rather lose their heads than be forced. Hyang crossed his arms, thinking for a moment before replying. I see. These are the top candidates to become royal blacksmiths. This isn't about disobedience, it's about national interest. So, recruit them by any means necessary. And so, each craftsman was assigned their own designated area, carefully sectioned off and secured. As Hyang observed one of the teams, a judge whispered beside him, That man over there, he's the master of the Gyeongju Ironworks. A guard quickly explained, He's the chief smith, the one who determines the size and position of the furnace, when to feed the fuel, when to add the ore, and when to let it cool. He's known as the furnace captain. Hyang's eyes lit up with genuine excitement. When the competition starts, I want to see how a true blacksmith works. Remembering his past life, Hyang smiled faintly, lost in nostalgia. I may look like a novice, but I once trained under a traditional swordsmith. I never thought I'd get to witness this ancient craft with my own eyes again. His quiet enthusiasm drew warm smiles from the staff around him. A minister raised a loudspeaker. All master blacksmiths, gather around. His Highness wishes to speak. The three main candidates straightened their backs. The Crown Prince himself? So this is just the beginning, one of them murmured as they stepped forward and bowed. We pay our respects to your Highness, the Crown Prince. Hyang greeted them with a welcoming smile. Welcome to Area 51, Masters of the Forge. I am the Crown Prince and I'm in full charge of establishing this royal ironworks. As you know, through this competition, one of you will become the chief overseer of Joseon's first royal ironworking enterprise. The iron you produce will be forged into rifles and swords to defend our kingdom, and into hoes and axes to enrich our people. It will even become a key resource to revitalize our economy. With a sharp, determined gaze, Hyang continued, one of you will earn the honor of leading the greatest ironworks in all of Joseon. His Majesty the King himself will reward you accordingly. But the three blacksmiths remained cold and stoic, their faces unreadable. Hyang gestured toward a pile of supplies covered with a tarp. All the materials you'll need are here. Once the competition begins, you won't leave Area 51 until it's over. Make sure you have everything you need. Bakdai thought to himself, the most important things are the ore and the fuel. As soon as they entered the storage area, everyone froze in surprise. What is this? Deoksu picked up a shimmering rock. Your Highness, the material we're to work with? Is this raw iron ore? Hyang smiled. That's right. Surely master craftsmen like you can refine raw iron, can't you? Bakdai nodded. It's troublesome, but we can manage. The other two added, yes, we can handle it. Suddenly, Hyang stopped and focused on Deoksu's movements. After grinding the ore, the master pulled out a sharp needle, poked the powder, and then held it over an oil lamp flame. Hyang muttered under his breath. Are they testing the combustion reaction of the iron dust? Bakdai turned around. Where's the red clay? Official Zhang pointed. Over here, follow me. Without a word, the three craftsmen grabbed handfuls of clay, then, to everyone's shock, tasted it. Hyang and Zhang both stared in disbelief. After sampling, they exchanged glances. Is something wrong? Hyang asked. Bakdai reported, yes, your Highness. Too much sulfur. Deoksu added, to make good iron, the sulfur must be removed. With this clay, that'll be difficult. We'll also need lime. Hyang immediately gave an order. Provide the clay they need, and make sure lime is prepared as well. The official bowed. At once, your Highness. The three craftsmen followed him to the fuel storage. When the door opened, they froze again. Wait, is that charcoal? The official shook his head. No, this is coal. It burns hotter and lasts longer than charcoal. From now on, you'll use this, explained a Bureau of Armory officer, pointing to the coal used for smelting. Manjuk frowned in disbelief. Coal? It burns hotter and longer than charcoal? Interesting. Then, what's the right ratio? The Bureau of Armory will teach you how to use it and explain its properties, the officer replied calmly. From a distance, Yang stood outside, his fists clenched, eyes intense. This kingdom has so much hidden talent. Yet, it's never been used properly, he thought. Now that I'm here, I'll change that. At the Eastern Palace, a servant bowed deeply. Your Highness, a message has arrived from Area 51. A man stepped forward. All materials for building the furnace are ready. Construction will begin no later than this afternoon. Hyang smiled. Is that so? Then let's go. He grabbed his robe and hurried down the corridor, so fast that he forgot to put on his hat. A flustered attendant called out, Your Highness, isn't this just a smelting competition? Hyang kept running and shouted back, The process of building a furnace is something you can't afford to miss. Meanwhile, the officials were discussing the appointment of overseers. Li Jik cleared his throat. The competition will begin soon, so we need to assign inspectors. Besides the Minister of Public Works, is there anyone willing to attend? Jung Chul replied calmly. Since His Highness will be making the final decision, our presence might seem redundant, but there will be plenty of interesting things to observe. The room stirred with interest. I'll attend. Count me in as well. Li Jik nodded. Very well. The Minister of Public Works, the Left State Councilor, and the Right State Councilor will serve as inspectors. At that moment, Hyang arrived outside the workshop, his face glowing with excitement. Jang Yongsul was taken aback. Your Highness, why are you here so soon? Has the furnace construction been completed, Official Zhang? Hyang asked. Official Zhang turned to his aides. Escort His Highness to the site. The foundation has been under construction for several days now. Hyang nodded. Good. Gather all our blacksmiths at the site. They'll assist in evaluating the competition. Then, half to himself, he murmured, Seems like today won't bring any big surprises. As he continued walking, he added, Observe and record the entire furnace construction process. Yes, Your Highness, Zhang replied respectfully. In another corner of the site, Hyang observed the ongoing preparations. The judges shouted as they tracked each team's progress. 1 point for Manjok, 1 for Deoksu, another for Manjok. Hyang smiled in satisfaction. Good. They've learned my hand signals already. In truth, it was Hyang himself who was judging the three candidates. The other judges were merely voicing the scores he signaled. Days passed. Hyang walked down the corridor, 2 attendants following closely behind. "It's been 3 days since they finished the foundation," he said. "They should be starting the actual furnace construction by now." His eyes gleamed as he arrived at the site. Everyone was working with full focus, coordinated, disciplined, and determined. Manjuk and Bakdai were molding bricks from red clay. At Deoksu's furnace, Hyang stepped closer to observe. The structure was square-shaped, using more stone than clay. Will this make it more heat-resistant?" Deoksu explained. "Stone alone won't withstand high heat, Your Highness. It must be coated with clay, but with this design, we won't have to repair it as often." Hyang cupped his face playfully. "Oh, I see. My apologies for disturbing you. Please, carry on." At that signal, one of the attendants quickly marked down a point for Deoksu. Construction continued for days. Bakdai's furnace rose tall and grand, while Manjuk's had a double-layered structure. Deoksu's remained square and stone-built, each region showing its own unique style. Later, in the office, official Jang entered with a serious expression. "Your Highness, all furnaces have been completed." Hyang smiled. "That's excellent news," Jang added. "However, before the competition begins, the craftsmen are requesting meat and liquor." While writing, Hyang replied casually, "For the consecration ceremony, give them what they need. Even though alcohol is forbidden, I'm sure Father will forgive a small ritual like this. But only half a bottle each." Jang's eyes lit up. "Understood, Your Highness. But how did you know about this custom?" Hyang chuckled. "I used to be a traditional blacksmith myself." The official looked puzzled, so Hyang quickly cleared his throat. I've seen similar rituals during furnace construction in the military department." Moments later, Hyang dashed into the hallway. "I have to see this for myself." Zhang and the attendants rushed after him. At the furnace site, the consecration ceremony was underway. A blacksmith knelt before an altar, lighting incense. Hyang chuckled. "I thought they'd do it together, but it seems each one holds their own ritual." He turned, a faint smile on his lips. Different furnaces, but the same wish. Praying that heaven and earth watch over them. Moved by the sight, Hyang gave an order. "The competition begins tomorrow. Notify the palace and hand the list of supervising officials to the head of security." "Yes, Your Highness." Not far from there, the left and right state councilors arrived on horseback. The left councilor murmured, "Every time I come here, this place gives me a strange feeling." The right councilor nodded. "I feel the same. It's like stepping into another world, unfamiliar, unsettling, yet oddly fascinating." The man smiled faintly. "I couldn't agree more." At the main gate, the guards carefully checked each document. "Left and right state councilors, your identities have been verified. You may enter with your party." Hyang came out to greet them cheerfully. "Ah, you've arrived." The 2 officials bowed deeply. "Our respects, Your Highness." A clerk announced loudly, "Left and right councilors, please proceed upstairs. Special seats have been prepared for the competition supervisors." "Thank you," replied the left councilor, but his steps halted abruptly. Before him stretched the entire competition grounds, a vast arena where every corner could be seen in one sweeping view. Hyang raised the loudspeaker. "Blacksmiths from every corner of Joseon, lend me your ears." His smile was calm, his tone steady. "For the next 15 days, you must forge a total of 5 iron bars, any size you wish, but each bar must weigh exactly 1.8 kilograms. All 5 must be identical in size, weight, and quality. The amount of coal and ore you use for each process will be recorded in detail. With that, let the smelting competition begin." He ended his speech with a firm stomp on the podium, then hurried down the stairs with excitement. "I'll be observing everything up close. If you have questions, direct them to the Minister of Public Works beside you." The officials exchanged uneasy glances. "As you command, Your Highness. Please be careful." One blacksmith tightened his headband, eyes blazing with determination. "Bring the coal, now." Moments later, the furnaces roared to life as coal was shoveled in. Everything was ready. Hyang watched intently, his heart pounding. The competition has finally begun, he thought with a grin. Not far away, official Jang issued orders. "During the smelting, sparks and debris will fly everywhere. The shields are ready. Stay close and protect the Crown Prince." The attendants replied in unison, "Yes, official Jang." Stage by stage, the process unfolded, tense yet orderly. Suddenly, one of the blacksmiths narrowed his eyes, instinct screaming danger. "Careful! Don't add too much! Get down now!" An assistant froze, realizing too late what was about to happen. Boom! A violent explosion sent him flying backward. In an instant, a chain of blasts erupted from other furnaces, one after another. Thick black smoke billowed upward, darkening the sky. 2 guards immediately shielded Hyang with their bodies. "Your Highness, are you hurt?" But Hyang only grinned, eyes burning with excitement. "I'm fine," he said, almost thrilled. Up above, the 2 counselors clung to each other in fear, while Jung Cho leaned over the railing, shouting desperately. "Your Highness, are you all right?" Still clutching the loudspeaker, Hyang answered loudly, "I'm fine. Stay calm. Call the medics and check on all the blacksmiths." Moments later, the chaos subsided. "Is anyone hurt?" Hyang asked. The blacksmiths bowed their heads. "No, Your Highness." We deeply apologize. Hyang nodded calmly. It's all right. This is your first time working with coal, after all. Agard whispered, There are minor injuries, Your Highness, but nothing serious. Hyang turned to him. And the furnaces? No damage, Your Highness. Hyang's eyes brightened. Good. There will be no judging today. The competition resumes tomorrow? The blacksmiths straightened up, relief on their faces. Yes, Your Highness. We'll do our best inside the hot, suffocating workshop. The clang of hammers, the hiss of molten metal, and the roar of fire blended into a symphony of steel. Every craftsman poured his soul into the forge, striving to create the finest bars possible. Smoke thickened around the furnaces like an iron-scented fog. From the edge of the arena, Hyang watched silently. It's been a week now, everything's going smoothly. As I thought, these men are truly masters, leading their teams like extensions of themselves. That night, tension finally flared. What did you just say? Manjuk snapped. Don't play dumb. You've been wandering around my area all day, you thief. Bakdai's jaw tightened, his teeth grinding. Thief, you say? Watch your mouth, you filthy servant. I'll break your spine. Manjuk slammed his hammer down. Oh yeah? Come and try. Daeoksu stepped between them. Enough. This is a government facility. Do you want to fight here? He glared at them both. I saw you walking near his area when you shouldn't have, and you don't make accusations without proof. Daeoksu's tone softened slightly. We may never be friends, but let's not be enemies either. We all live and die by the forge. He nodded toward the entrance. Your men are worried. They're about to barge in here. Guards rushed over. Hey, you two. This is a restricted zone. We understand your work is important, but be careful. Startled, both blacksmiths bowed their heads. Yes, sir. Our apologies. It won't happen again. They walked off in opposite directions, but the fire in their eyes still burned. The next morning, Hyang received a report. So, there was an incident last night? Jang Yongsil bowed. Yes, Your Highness. There were concerns, so the report was sent immediately. Good, Hyang replied. Assign several officers to stay with the craftsmen. I want every movement observed and reported. As you command, Your Highness. Moments later, Hyang stood up. All right, let's go for an inspection. When he arrived, 2 workers were laying out chunks of iron to dry. One shouted, Quick, mix it with the other bar. Hyang frowned. They were melting forged iron together again, just like the refining methods used in modern times. Time passed, and the competition neared its end. Hyang sat calmly, but his mind was constantly analyzing. All 3 teams had started the same way. Forge, melt, cool, and repeat. Among them, Bakdai's team stood out the most, their coordination unmatched. Unexpectedly, Daeoksu's team began mixing iron with other metals. By forging and burning with carbon, they raised the temperature and improved the purity of the iron. Hyang exhaled slowly. The final stage is close. One wrong move, and a blacksmith's body pays the price. Manjuk looked down at his burned hand. Damn it! Why now, of all times? He plunged his hand into a bucket of water. Blood instantly mixed with the water's surface. Then, raindrops began to fall from the sky. He froze, looking up. Rain? No. Damn it. The furnaces, a voice whispered in his mind. Let it be. This is your chance. If they're too slow, their bars will be ruined. Just protect your own furnace. The rain poured harder, but his feet felt heavy. Then the echo of an old monk's voice echoed in his memory. The fire within you can save or destroy. The choice is yours. Manjuk stood still for a moment, then chuckled bitterly. Ah, I really am unlucky? He remembered those words from his days at the monastery, even if he had only eaten a few bowls of rice there. Then he shouted, his voice cutting through the storm. Rain! Rain! Wake up! Protect your furnaces! Cover the fire now! The quiet night erupted in chaos. Blacksmiths rushed out of their shelters, working together to save their furnaces and tools from the downpour. By morning, the rain had softened into a drizzle. Hyang stood by the window, gazing out over the competition grounds. The rain came so suddenly, yet they handled it well. An official beside him nodded. Yes, Your Highness. The issue was resolved quickly. Their furnaces are safe. Meanwhile, Manjuk rested in his tent. A fellow craftsman sighed beside him. This rain won't stop anytime soon. All we can do is wait, a voice called from outside. Manjuk, are you in there? He recognized it immediately. In this weather? What are you doing here? I'm not the type to owe favors, Bakdai said curtly, handing him something. Manjuk blinked. Burn ointment? Apply it 3 times a day. Clean the wound first. When this competition is over, you can't afford any setbacks. Forget your pride, Bakdai added without looking back. Just heal fast. On his way back, he ran into someone unexpected. Daeoksu. You're heading to see Manjuk too? Yes, Daeoksu replied flatly. Looks like you were there first. Bakdai smirked. My tongue might be slow, but my feet are fast. Daeoksu chuckled. Haha, I'll give you that. At Manjok's door, Daeoksu knocked. Manjuk, may I come in for a moment? From inside came an annoyed shout. You're visiting one after another. What's going on? A laugh followed. Ha ha ha, what? You thought we came here to thank you? 2 days later, the rain finally stopped and the competition resumed. Manjuk looked down at his palm and smiled faintly. That ointment from Bakdai really works. It's not fully healed, but it's much better. Hyang observed the scene closely. We'll see this through to the very end? Yes, Your Highness, replied the attendant behind him. The final days went by smoothly. Daeoksu stood tall, satisfied with his work. Manjuk stared at his own results, quiet admiration in his eyes. Bakdai looked exhausted, but confident everything had gone well. Meanwhile, at the Ministry of Justice, the minister examined a report. Can this information be trusted? It does sound plausible, but send someone to confirm it, quietly. We'll take precautions before rumors start spreading. An official nodded with a bitter smile. Understood, Minister. The minister leaned back, deep in thought. If this was handled poorly, it could lead to a move to depose the Crown Prince. Time flew by quickly, and the day of judgment finally arrived. The sound of a hammer striking a gong echoed through the air. The competition is over. All craftsmen, hand your iron bars to your team leaders. Relieved sighs filled the area. It's finally done. Hyang immediately gave a firm order. Summon the royal advisors for the evaluation. Official Jang Yong-sil, gather the judges. Guards, oversee the collection of the iron bars from each craftsman. Yes, Your Highness. Manjuk exhaled deeply. At last, it's done. I've given it everything I had. The rest is up to fate. The wooden crates were sealed tightly. Ayang reminded them, judge fairly. Begin by unsealing Master Manjuk's batch. Each bar's quality and weight were inspected carefully. Every verification step was carried out with precision. Each iron bar was melted down one by one to analyze its composition. But even then, reaching a final decision wasn't easy. That afternoon, the gentle breeze made everyone drowsy. Even the left and right state councilors had drifted into sleep. Hyang, his eyes shadowed with dark circles from sleepless nights, suddenly stood up with renewed energy. All right, I've made my decision. Jungcho cleared his throat nervously. Your Highness, that's the 5th time you've said that since last night. We understand your anxiety, but pushing yourself like this won't help. Hyang clenched his fists. This time, I won't change my mind again. The winner is... Suddenly a shout came from outside. Your Highness, the head of security requests an urgent audience. A group of fierce-looking men has appeared at the main gate of Area 51. The heavy doors creaked open, and everyone turned as Hyang stepped out. The officials immediately bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. Thank you. Is it true that the inspection bureau is at the main gate? Hyang asked sharply. The leading official bowed again. Yes, Your Highness. I bring a royal decree. He presented a scroll. Hyang took it, frowning as he broke the seal. Meanwhile, a few days earlier at the palace, King Sejong was meeting with the chief inspector. So, you suspect one of the craftsmen from Chungcheong? Yes, Your Majesty, the inspector replied nervously. I've received reports that he was once part of a bandit gang years ago. King Sejong's expression hardened. So, this is their excuse to slander the Crown Prince and oppose the establishment of the Royal Steel Corporation? The inspector quickly bowed his head. No, Your Majesty. But it would be wise to re-examine the matter, investigate before the competition ends. Otherwise, the announcement could lead to chaos. King Sejong went silent, thinking deeply. Very well. Area 51 is to fully cooperate with the Investigation Bureau at that very moment. Holding the decree tightly, Hyang commanded, Head of Security, escort the inspectors to the craftsmen's lodgings. Yes, Your Highness. Hyang slammed his hand on the table, frustration written all over his young face. I've just been informed. Among the craftsmen participating in this competition, there may be one who was once a bandit. The entire room fell silent, stunned. No one dared to speak. Jungcho finally spoke up. That's impossible, Your Highness. We thoroughly screened every participant's background, Hyang shot back. What about their assistants? Jungcho hesitated. As I recall, we only collected basic personal data from them. Hyang rubbed his temples. So, not only did you bring a criminal into the capital, you led him into a government facility, inside the most secure zone I personally built. If this gets exploited, we're finished. Soon after, all the craftsmen were gathered. Manjuk frowned. What's going on? Where are they taking those craftsmen? Beside him, Daeoksu looked equally puzzled. No idea, but they're hauling off everyone from Chungcheong Manjo couldn't hold back. Hey, what do you think you're doing? You can't just drag them away like that. A judge quickly approached to calm him, whispering, Stop. Don't make a scene, or you'll be taken too. That's the Secret Investigation Bureau. They received an anonymous report. One of the craftsmen might be a former bandit. They're just being questioned. If they're innocent, they'll be released soon. In his chamber, Hyang couldn't stay still. Anxiety was written all over his face. What's going on? I need more information. Now. The scene shifted to the royal palace. King Sejong spoke firmly. From this moment onward, all reports from the Secret Investigation Bureau regarding the participants of the royal company's selection will be delivered directly to the palace. Hyang exhaled slowly, frustration heavy in his voice. How could they finish an investigation in just one day? They didn't even have enough time to prepare properly. King Sejong glanced at his son. a faint smile tugging at his lips. Hyang, it seems you're in quite the predicament this time. The Minister of Justice stepped forward to deliver his report. The investigation into the craftsman from Chungcheong began with an anonymous letter of complaint. Hyang blinked in disbelief. An anonymous letter? Not even an official petition? The minister continued. From that, we discovered that 2 of the 7 blacksmith assistants were, in fact, former bandits. King Sejong looked satisfied. Thank you, Minister of Justice. I'll summon you again if needed. Then, the chief state counselor spoke up. Your Majesty, shouldn't we also hear an explanation from the Crown Prince, who's responsible for overseeing the competition? King Sejong nodded. That's reasonable. Hyang stepped forward. Hyang walked to the center and bowed respectfully. Yes, Your Majesty. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. There's no other choice. At times like this, I have to face it head on. I admit that I lacked the foresight to prevent this incident. I sincerely apologize to my father and to the court officials for the trouble I've caused. King Sejong let out a quiet sigh, one hand covering his forehead, caught between sympathy and disappointment. You really misstepped this time, he thought. Then Minister Heojo stepped forward and bowed. I, Heojo, Minister of Personnel, believe the Crown Prince may have involved himself too deeply in state affairs for someone so young. I propose assigning a minister to take charge of Area 51 instead. I am Kim Jium, reporting in. Another voice followed. That facility is far too large for His Highness to manage alone. A third minister interjected sharply. It would be best to dissolve the ministry currently overseeing Area 51 and restructure its secretariat entirely. King Sejong's voice cut through the room like thunder. Enough! He turned sharply, glaring at the ministers. Huang He, why are you sitting there like a clam? What do you think? Huang He stepped forward, his tone calm yet firm and clear. In my opinion, this matter is not solely the Crown Prince's fault. The supervising ministries share the responsibility, and those who concealed the assistants' true identities must also be held accountable. Furthermore, we should hear directly from Bak Dai, the master craftsman from Chungcheong. Hyang was awestruck, his eyes sparkling as if gazing upon a living Buddha. Grandfather, you're truly shining today. King Sejong smiled faintly, clearly pleased with the suggestion. The left state counselor is right. I want to hear from him myself. Inspector General, bring Bak Dai, the master craftsman from Chungcheong province, here at once. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.